Hello, and welcome back to the Precision Personal Training Podcast. This is episode number 58. Today, I am very excited for this episode because I'm joined by a man I've been putting through torture for the last 3 years. This is my long-term client, one-to-one, in person, Mr. Daniel O'Grady. Daniel, thank you for coming on the podcast today.
Well, thank you for having me, Kyle.
Okay, so we've obviously seen Dan's disguise. This is Heisenberg from Breaking Bad. So now we need to get rid of the disguise, Dan, and get stuck in. So look, before we get into anything serious, Daniel, what do you actually think of myself after 3 years working together? How many times have you wanted to tell me to F off?
That really does depend on how long we've been doing this because it's been 3 years. It's been roughly about I want to say like 200-ish sessions together, give or take. He knows what's coming. Yeah, at least half of at that time, I really wish I could say less than appropriate things about your conduct. Yes.
There we go. So when you hear you've lost 50.4 kilos, because that's why Dan is here today, he's lost a staggering 50.4 kg, which is super impressive across 3 years. Does that actually register with you?
Honestly, not really, no, because it's just like it's such a staggering amount. Because I've come from a background of I never thought I could get that far, and the fact that I now am, I'm still struggling to accept it. It's staggering, absolutely.
So speaking of your background, can you give an idea for anyone who doesn't know you and the listeners today? Can you give an idea what your day-to-day life was like before you decided to come into the gym?
My day-to-day life was very stagnant, is the most apt way to put it. I would basically almost always stay at home, do almost nothing, like stay hibernated in my room basically, just doing what I do and just eating more than I should.
Okay, so then when it comes to obviously you wanting to lose the weight, right? What was your first weigh-in before you started your weight loss journey?
My first weigh in before I started, I was up to a total of 25 stone, 11 pounds.
Okay, and then when you obviously weighed in at that time, did the gym cross your mind at all, like exercise at all, or was it a case of okay, I need to do something? Did you know what exactly to do?
The basis of that initial weigh in was I was kind of a recently booked endocrinology appointment just kind of snuck up on me and on us, my situation at home. And it's like, we just go there, see what options there were in case, something had to happen. Evidently, something did happen because during that session up there in Galway, I was informed of Ozempic, a very what's the word I'm looking for here? A well known, very well known injection you typically used to treat diabetes patients, but has shown results in weight loss as well. And I was offered that just out of nowhere. I had no idea that was going to happen, and it was just kind of like a spur of the moment. There's no deliberation. I just kind of have to accept that this is going to be the change now.
So even before we get into like Ozempic and taking that, because I think people hear that and they nearly get scared, and we can go into that. But just before you even got to the endocrinology appointment, like, were you confident in yourself at all at that point?
No, absolutely not. Because before that point, I had actually tried weight loss before. Like, I think it was like two small patches in my life. Like, right after junior cert was my first initial push. After that, inevitably kind of fizzled out after, like, during transition year into leaving cert. I tried again, like, say, like 2 years ish after leaving cert, but nothing stuck. And I just ended up getting bigger than I was when I started.
Did that kind of leave you with a bad taste towards like dieting and weight loss?
I've always had a bad taste for dieting because I have a very restrictive dietary habits. I there's not a whole lot I can stomach eating. If it's not something I know I'll have, I'll shut it out. I'd rather not have anything at all than something I actively don't want to have to eat.
What was your energy like in a day to day before you started to actually lose weight?
Uh, to say I didn't have any energy at all would be pretty apt. Like I was, like I said, I stayed in my room most of the time, not because, well, I mean, I guess it was partly because of the whole weight and the motivation issues, but it was also because I was just too tired to do much of anything of substance. Like I wouldn't go, I had no reason to go out, no like social connections to really avail of. I was just kind of in my own little world, and I had no real drive to build up the energy to break out of it at all.
Okay. And then when it comes to that endocrinology appointment, did you decide to go on Ozempic, or was it kind of just recommended and told you got to start doing this?
It was a bit of both because it was my decision because patient or whatever gets the final say, but it was definitely like it was kind of like a light bulb moment. That's like we didn't expect this to happen. Like I remember like I went up there with my mother because she had to bring me up. I didn't know how to drive back then. We'll cross that road when we get there. So when the name of Ozempic was dropped and that this could be like an answer, my mother was absolutely floored. Like there are a few times I've seen her like her jaw hit the floor proverbially like that, and I was like, if this is the kind of reaction that it's going to elicit, it kind of was out of my control somewhat because I couldn't really say no after that.
Of course. So when you started taking it, what was the biggest changes you started to notice in yourself or in the lifestyle kind of habits?
Lifestyle habit wise, not a whole lot actually did change. I did stay in my room most of the day throughout, like every day. I would always just stay in my room on my computer, whatever. But one thing I did slowly start to notice is that I was starting to eat less. I used to have too much, obviously, like way, way too much. I couldn't give you like direct numbers, but like
Can you give me an idea of what a normal day of eating was like for you?
a normal day of eating, like you have your three round meals, or
Yeah.
square meals, whatever the phrasing is.
Yeah.
But the killer for me was like I would snack all the time, or like sneak in extra portions, or anything like that. Anything that I shouldn't do, I basically almost always did because it's I wanted to do it, I suppose. And it was like there's no salvaging the situation, so I figured I may as well just fully commit to the bad decisions in a way.
What was your relationship like with food though before all this started?
Before it all started,
Was it a comfort thing?
it's partly that I'm a foodie. Like I love eating food.
Same.
It's just it's something that's very comforting for me because it's something I relate to wanting to need to having it to kind of calm down. I'm a stress eater as well on top of being a foodie, which is a very very dangerous mix for the sake of weight loss.
So then, did you notice? I know we touched on lifestyle. Did you notice any sort of changes to your body and like your food noise, levels of hunger? Did that drop at all?
Levels of hunger did definitely drop because I managed to cut down on snacking almost completely for the first couple of months. I stayed so much in my room that I barely left to eat, which meant I didn't eat as much because I just wasn't looking for it as much. So I just had my three normal meals a day, and that was it.
Yeah, and I think the big thing there is, so before Daniel started me, obviously, he told me he was on Ozempic at the time, and a lot of people get scared by it. But I genuinely think without it, like we wouldn't be here right now because it obviously gave you the kickstart to be like, all right, Dan, something has to change here now. You know, you need to stop doing what you're doing, and something has to give. And I think a lot in what I see with a lot of trainers and coaches, they kind of get scared of clients that are doing it because you know the thing of oh, you're injecting yourself with this thing. It's like just because that's the process doesn't mean that it's scary or it should be something that you need to run away from. I think hand in hand with a good lifestyle change, good habits in place, and plenty of movement and exercise, it could be something super powerful. And this is what we've seen. Like it was able to get you kickstarted on your weight loss journey, and then you took it a step further. So I think you lost, was it the first stone yourself on Ozempic?
The first stone, a stone and a half, I want to say, maybe two at the most.
Okay, so then when it comes to walking into the gym and getting started in the gym, how did that come about? Because obviously that was not on your Richter scale, you could say, at all.
No, I still wasn't even thinking about gymming or exercising or anything like that. I would have been content to just stay put, stay in my rigid little zone. But a family member, my brother actually, he suggested precision personal training because there's a bit of a familial connection there. We're loosely related, I suppose, is the way to put it. And it was something to pad out my day besides just being in my room all the time. And I'm like, I was softly nudged in that direction, like with the Ozempic. But I'm like, I mean, the Ozempic went so well. I figured may as well give this a fair shake again and see what happens this time.
Did you have any expectations to what you were getting in? Because obviously you tried weight loss before, you've been in gyms before. Did you have any expectations at all coming through the door? Or were you more of an open book?
I try to remain an open book as a personal rule of myself. I like being upfront about who I am and what I think and all that. While also trying to be kind about it. No one likes a know-it-all or someone that insists that their way is the only way, whatever. But in terms of the gymming and what I expected, I don't like thinking about the future like that. I get stuck in my head very easily about what ifs and could this happen and again, what ifs. It's the biggest killer for me. So I just kind of, if I think too much about that, I kind of just get rooted in place, and I just end up not doing anything out of fear. So I just kind of went in with an empty head. Just whatever happens, happens. I'm not going to think about it too much because that won't help. I just went for it. There's no deeper explanation for that. I just went in.
Yeah. You didn't overthink it too much, just straight in.
Yes.
Do you remember your first few sessions?
I definitely do. It's hard. It's a memory I have tried to forget because it was not easy in any respect.
Why?
The exercises were, well, to say grueling would probably be a bit harsh. But they were definitely tough because I'm coming from a place of not having moved in months or even years at that point. My endurance was absolutely abysmal. I could barely keep things going. Some exercises, my body were actively fighting against my mind against doing it. It was a struggle for my entire being, basically.
Exactly. Look, so because it's such a new thing for Daniel at the time, like we're looking back on 3 years ago, it was a case of let's just get him enjoying the place. You know, he's already told me this is where, like I always say, we have two ears, one mouth for a reason. You have to listen to the person that's in front of you, and this is why it's called personal training. You make it personal. So Daniel obviously told me he had previous experiences with trying to lose weight, but just wasn't enjoyable, and it was probably just a bit too difficult because a lot of people can follow a very dogmatic approach to training, and obviously, like you said, headstrong and set in their ways, and that is just it. Whereas with Dan, we had to adapt, and like with every client we have to adapt. Some people have more stamina than others, and would you think now the way you train 3 years later, you'd be able to survive 3 years ago?
Not even remotely, no. There's not a chance at all. I'd be lucky to even get through half of what I do today. Back if I was like myself 3 years ago, that would be me on a good day back then. Whereas now it's kind of just like my day to day because I build up my strength, my endurance, my stamina is a bit still. It's a weak link for sure for me because that's just kind of who I am. But overall, I've definitely noticed that I am a lot more capable physically than I ever was.
Exactly. And like Dan got to a point where we would just taper off the volume. And that's all we were doing. We were getting him in to see what he can actually do. And then all we're trying to do is just 1 to 2% better each session. Sometimes Dan will come in, he'll have a terrible night's sleep. We'll get into your sleep. or something could be off. He could be feeling under the weather, and we can't push him there and then. But the fact he got in, he was burning calories, he was exercising. It was a case where we were able to build from that, and we set a good foundation. Because what I say to all my clients is a good house is built on a good foundation. It's the same thing when you're trying to lose weight, build muscle, or develop a healthy relationship with training, because we see it all the time. People go from 0 to 100 straight away. If you came in and you went straight away Monday to Friday exercising 5 days per week, what do you think would happen to you?
I would have probably burnt out in the middle of day two.
Exactly. So you wouldn't even made it through the first week, because if we didn't listen to Dan, we wouldn't understand that he came from such a novice background where he'd no gym experience, and that's okay too. Again, the gym is for everybody. You're looking at a man here who would stay himself. What do you say? This place.
I just don't know why I'm still here.
But he's still coming and he's still training, and lo and behold, he's lost 50 kilos. So, Dan, what I would say to you, or what I would ask you on that, is someone who's in their 20s, 30s, 40s, or even 50s that are overthinking about getting into the gym and they're a complete beginner. What would you say to them about getting started?
The only advice I could take is kind of the advice I ended up taking. It's just to go in. You just have to make an appointment, go in, test the waters a bit, because looking from the outside in doesn't really do tell you much. It doesn't give you any information to act on. But if you go in, you see you're on the level, you understand what's going to happen. If someone can help you out, that's all the better. You can't just put it off and think, "Oh, I'm going to learn more," without going into it. You need that first-hand experience, I think, because only then can you get a proper grip on exactly how helpful it is going to be for you.
What kept you coming back when training was uncomfortable?
Uh, the fact of the matter is, it was my schedule. I am a very I live by my schedules. I'm a very diligent person like that. If there's an appointment made, I am going to be there, rain or shine, doesn't matter what. I've made the obligation. I'm going to show up. That's who I am. That's who I've always been.
Then, when we get into it, how did you find battling fatigue in the gym while you were training?
It's it's a persistent battle because it's still a very big problem for me. I'm a terrible sleeper. I've always had issues sleeping ever since I was young. I always slept at odd times, woke up at even more ungodly hours. Like I'm talking like 2 a.m., 3 a.m. There was a patch of a couple of months in my life where I don't think I even got any actual sleep at all for that 3 months, and it was like I was a walking corpse. It was really bad.
Well, you still prevailed.
I I couldn't tell you how, but I am in fact still here. Yes.
And then when did you start to realize, okay, I'm actually getting fitter and stronger?
I notice it by doing like busy work around the house. Like I'm home a lot. Obviously, it's duh. And I'm always like the first hand. I'm always like first call to like help out around the house, like heavy lifting, or the boiler needs to be cleaned out or filled or whatever. I'm always first call there. I always gripe and moan about it because I hate doing that, but I'll do it because it needs to be done. But I've noticed that the heavy lifting doesn't feel as cumbersome anymore. Like I can handle more, I can handle it faster, I can handle it without complaining as much because of, I can get it done faster because I'm just more efficient with my energy, I suppose.
Good. And again, it's that progressive approach, but progressively tailored to you is what I like to say to clients, because we're going at your rate. You set the pace in sessions between like how much you want to push, and then there is the days where we do have to give you that bit of a nudge, but it's paying off. And one thing in particular that I noticed in you from the get go after a while, obviously we take photos and updates because they're obviously important to see visible changes. It was your clothing. So for anyone listening, can you give them an idea of what you were when you're at your heaviest size wise in clothing?
My heaviest, I believe, was 4XL.
And what do you know?
I'm like on the precipice between XL and 2XL.
Excellent. Excellent. And you'll see it in the announcement photo. We got a lovely photo in the gym with Dan wearing his old t-shirts.
Oh God.
But hey, they're comfy.
They are comfortable, yes. And if anything, they're kind of like almost like a trophy at this point.
And that's what I'm going to ask you next. How important do you think it is to keep things like that? Because some people that I've coached in the past are like, all right, I'm putting everything into bin bags, or I'm throwing it away, or I'm not taking any photos of myself because I can't accept how I look now. You had a very good self-awareness of accepting, look, I'm not happy with where I am, but I know I'm going to show up all the time and work towards the person I'm going to become.
For me, like old like clothing and stuff that wouldn't fit you anymore because it's just too big. I don't think it's a point of shame to hold on to it. In fact, I think it's quite the opposite. I actually think it's almost cathartic to look back on it and be like, "Wow, that's how much I used to be," or versus now, like I've made that much progress on myself that it's such a ridiculous article of clothing that used to be like tight fitting on me, and now it's kind of almost hanging over me. It's a really it's a really good feeling, I think. So that's why I think about that.
Brilliant. And then getting into your training, how many days a week were you in the gym?
We initially started with 2 sessions a week, and at like a year and a half. So, and let me have year and a half, 2 years later, we moved it up to three sessions a week to kind of keep the gradual progression going on.
Yeah. So basically, how it works is Dan comes into me on a Monday morning and hits me with
So I was 18-8, for instance. Yeah, I like to give the it's a whole song, it's a whole ritual.
100%. My week isn't the same unless I'm hit with this on a Monday.
I was 18-8 and I'm now 18-6 for reference.
And then we lose our shit over celebrating Dan down 2 pounds. And if he's up, it's like, it's okay. It happens. But basically, the reason why we went from 2 to 3 sessions was obviously Dan came in and weight loss was plateauing for a while. And we all know fat loss happens or weight loss happens because of a caloric deficit. There's 2 ways to create a deficit. Obviously, move more, expend more calories, or eat less. Dan, as you know, is a foodie, like myself. I love food. If you say to me, you have to drop your calories, I'm going to be like, oh my God, I'm not doing that. Good luck. If you say to me, can you move a bit more? Can you walk outside of the days in the gym, which is the bane of Dan's existence? He will do it because he knows if he walks, he doesn't have to pull back on food. So Dan, how are you getting on with the walking constantly now outside the gym?
It's been a bit rough, admittedly. It's a matter of motivation for me because I know like I have to do it, and it kind of goes against what I was saying about like a like a diligent schedule oriented person. But my defense or excuse probably for that is that it's not really written down anywhere. It's kind of like up to me to like be like the sole motivator to make that happen, which is a point of weakness for me, I will admit.
Was there a point where you kind of stopped feeling like you were training just to get fit or lose weight? And it's a case now where it's like, this is me now. This is who I am. Monday, Thursday, Saturday is just who I am.
For a while, it didn't feel like that. No, it definitely took a bit of warming up to the concept before it kind of normalized in my mind. But nowadays, it does feel like if there's anything that comes up that I can't make it for any of our normal session times, it's like I notice that it's not there, and I'm like, wow, I kind of wish we could get back to normal. So yeah, it's definitely a notable lack whenever it's not there.
And you miss the breakfast club.
Yes, I suppose you could say that.
Daniel, myself, and Dave and his client Lauren were like the 11 a.m. breakfast club. We've great crack. And it's gas. Dan always says, oh, I don't belong here. I'm not the type of person that should be here. But I have clients that come in before Dan and after Dan. They come in and they're like, where's Daniel if he's not here? And they're nearly sickened he's not there. So Daniel has such a massive impression on the gym and everyone around him. So I wanted you to know that. But I think you already know that.
Because people have already told me en masse, actually.
Did you find there was improvements even outside of the gym? Like obviously once you start to get fitter, healthier, stronger, you're more confident. Was there much improvements outside of your normal day to day?
I think one of the biggest changes was my mood. Because before I started my weight loss, I was a very quiet, very dour person. Like I barely made any quips. I was very much a speak when spoken to kind of person. Like I didn't initiate conversation on my own accord.
Every now and then.
I fall apart.
Now we have to explain that.
Yes, we do have to explain that. I like to say very specific verbal tics. I like say, or stims, I suppose would be the better term because tics means it's involuntary. It's a very voluntary action. I it's just something that just makes me laugh because it's just something fun to say. It barely makes any sense. It's completely ridiculous, but I love saying this sort of stuff because it gets a reaction because people know it's just a joke.
Apparently.
Yeah, apparently I've never been on the news before.
And then every now and then.
I fall apart. It's just
What else have we got? What's in the locker there?
I don't know. Those are like the two main ones.
Did the two main. Oh, keep a country.
Oh yeah, I don't know what that means.
I love hitting Dan with that when he leaves the gym. Every time. Dan, keep a country.
I don't know what that means. And to this day, I still don't.
Now, getting back to your improvements outside the gym as well,
Yes.
there was one I was very proud of Dan for. Can you elaborate?
Yes, I can elaborate that as of earlier this year, I have started learning how to drive. Something I never thought in a million years I would ever do. And no one else did either, honestly, because I was so against it myself.
I did. I could see it. I said it to you.
Okay, you said it to me, but did you believe it would ever going to happen? Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. What was the agreement for this podcast? We said
That if I lost 50 kg, I would be on the podcast.
and we're here.
That, yes.
So Dan just lacks. He's still working on that self-belief in himself that I know he has, because whatever he says, he absolutely does. So yeah, how you find driving these days?
I'm not even halfway through my lessons, honestly. But even in spite of that, I've found I'm a surprisingly fast learner, actually.
Come on.
It's been a constant source of surprise that I am picking up stuff that other people would have taken a lot more lessons to be comfortable to. Well, comfortable might be a bit strong because there's always the nerves there for the early days, but like yeah, it's been really reassuring that I can in fact pick this up.
Come on. Did you ever feel like you're on a diet?
No, because for all intents and purposes, I really wasn't. Because I eat a lot of bad stuff, like breaded stuff, like, like greasy stuff, that stuff. Well, I mean, technically his...
Jimmy's hot chocolate.
Well, yes, but that's not what he's drinking, though.
What am I drinking?
It's coffee of some type.
Yeah, just black. Very smug about drinking black coffee.
Yes, apparently.
I've never been on the news before.
It goes both ways. It goes both ways. That wasn't even intentional.
No. So you never felt like you're on a diet?
No, because I really wasn't. I still ate the same stuff I would have, but either we would cut back on the portions or find healthier alternatives that basically accomplish the same goal. Like I would have, say, for instance, see, we struggled on this in the past.
Remember we switched from wedges to potato chips?
It wasn't even wedges ever. It was kind of like bagged
Yeah.
chips to like homemade instead.
Yeah. So how do you do them?
You get a couple of potatoes. You peel them. You slice them into strips.
Yeah.
Soak them, dry them. Stick them in an air fryer. Add a little bit of 1 calorie oil. Spritz it across evenly. Shake it about. Add a little bit of seasoning on top. Into the air fryer for about 15, 16 minutes, and that's all there is to it. Like shake it every couple of minutes, and that's that.
Chef's kiss. Yeah. So small changes like that, because the goal is always we're trying to manipulate his energy balance. So again, if we can get the same effect as, like, let's say bagged frozen chips or whatever it was, and you don't feel like, let's say you're on a diet or eating too restrictive, it doesn't feel like it's out of character, then happy days. So something as small as going from frozen bag chips to chopping up some Roosters, Kyo's, whatever you want to use, Mary's Piper, these different brands. If you're just chopping up regular potatoes, which are more calorically, they're less calories than, they're more calorically efficient. So I was trying to say they're less calories than these frozen chips or wedges, whatever it is. Then albeit we'll run that into the ground, and Dan has been doing that. And it's a case where, Dan, I think you enjoy most of the foods you eat now, and it's just rinse and repeat.
Yeah, for sure. I eat the same stuff. I don't have a lot of variety, but that's never really bothered me. I eat things in phases,
Yeah.
and there's not been any issues on that front at all during this entire endeavor.
Yeah, and you've still been able to have your treats, do your thing. Just with Dan, it was never a case where we even had to mention a meal plan, or like, let's say, have X amount of calories at this meal, because we knew from all the data we had previously with the weigh-ins, if we can just stick to this structure, this is where everyone is different. Some people are going to track calories. Some people are going to follow a meal plan. Some people are going to follow a keto diet. Terrible idea. And some people are going to have a structured approach to their eating. And I think the way Dan has done it is actually shows it's sustainable, and you could do it for life, because could you keep up what you're doing for the next 10, 15 years?
I could see it happening, yeah, because it's low. It's not low effort. It's consistent, and it's easier than, well, yeah, it's easier than the alternative, I suppose.
What was harder, losing the first 10 kg or continuing after that kind of initial excitement wore off?
Oh, it was definitely continuing after the excitement wore off, because, like he mentioned, there was a bit of a plateau in my weight loss for a while there, and it was definitely hard to keep the motivation going at times. There were days where I did just feel like I don't want to come in today. I just really, like, I slept terrible, or my mood just isn't there at all. So I would cancel when I didn't necessarily have to, which, I acknowledge that it was just me being, well, there's no better way to put it, a pussy. Like, I'm not gonna mince words about it. Like, that's who I am. I'm not afraid of admitting that. But that is the truth of the matter.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the point is, I always make up for the days I miss, and that's the thing.
People would assume, and a lot of my clients have mentioned this, that you're very motivated after losing this amount of weight after 3 years. Uh, when motivation wasn't there, what did you rely on?
I relied on, I guess, the fact of I didn't really have a choice, I suppose. I'm kind of locked into this life. I can't really afford to mess it up. So it's that kind of like uh responsibility, I suppose. I'm responsible to myself, and I guess to the people that believe in me, to keep this up, because it's as much as it is for myself, it is also for other people as well that want to see me do well, and I want to do right by them as well.
Absolutely. Forget the scales and the weight loss just for a second. What's better about your life now?
What's better about my life? I'm just a happier person. I'm making quips. I'm making jokes, like the vocal stim thing. That never happened back then. I love how talkative I am. I love just talking. Like little snarky remarks that have a little bit of bite, but nothing serious.
A little bit of sass.
A little bit, maybe a bit more than that. But the point is, I just love where my headspace is at, and I could have never thought I'd be so content with how I express myself until, well, here we are. It's just been very enlightening.
What would Daniel 3 years ago think if he saw you now?
He would think, like, who the hell is this guy? What is he doing? What is he talking about? Like, just leave me alone.
Still a diva though.
Oh, absolutely. That part is always consistent.
So, what would you say has been the best decision you've made over the last 3 years?
Over the past 3 years, it's kind of just kind of go where the wind blows, honestly. Like the winds of change were kind of blowing in this direction. They were always kind of headed towards like this is the time to really like focus. Like this is where things are going to change up and you need to be on board. And for the first time, I actually just decided instead of like being reticent, being like I know I'm comfortable where I am, I'm gonna dig my heels in. I let them take me to a place I never thought I would be, in a situation I never thought I would ever be a part of. Like weight loss, exercising, all of that was none of that was in my crosshairs even remotely 3 years ago. And there was a very real chance that it could have never gone that far. That I could have that I just decided to really hunker down, but I'm so glad I didn't because it, not to sound melodramatic, but it did save my life to do that. So to just want to be better.
Let's say now someone listening to this wants to lose 20, 30, 40, 50 kilos. They're afraid what others are going to think when they get into the gym. They're afraid what others are going to think when they're out on a walk. What would you say to that person?
I would say that other people's opinions like that shouldn't matter at all because the only person that you're going to see every day, the only person that's gonna, be a judge of who you are every single day is yourself. And you need to work on making that inner voice of yourself happy, healthy, safe. That's what's most important because circumstances being like I was kind of strung into this, in spite of that, I'm glad I made myself happier. And other people should as well because, well, that's kind of just how you live because it's just, I'm kind of a bit tongue tied here, but the short of it is you just have to live to make yourself happy and forget what everyone else thinks like that. Like your opinion of yourself matters a whole lot more than anyone else's.
50.4 kilos down. What's next for Daniel O'Grady?
Well, I guess we're aiming for 60.
That is the plan. We're going to keep pushing on because, again, like with the way we have this set up with Daniel, this dude can keep this up. You can keep rolling with the punches, keep with the sass and the bit of complaining and the fatigue, but we'll get past that. We're here. Um, I just want to say it's massive credit to you. I think everyone has been taught because this is take 2 of the podcast, right? We had a malfunction last week, and I told everyone that the podcast was coming out. Everyone yesterday and today, day before, were like, "Oh, when's the podcast with Dan out?" And I've had to explain, and they're like, "Oh, sickened." So people are really looking forward to listening to this because it's such a substantial amount of weight to lose in 3 years. And I think it comes back to people overestimate what they can achieve in a week and underestimate what they can achieve in a year. You've adapted such a long-term mindset and you've been able to just show up and be that 1% better each day. And it's a massive testament to your character, but you were never perfect. And this is what I want you to remember if you're listening to this. Daniel was never perfect. No one is. He just had the willingness to keep showing up and make it a part of his life. You need to come out of the mindset of, oh, I'm going to change in 4 to 6 weeks. You'll change some things, right? But they won't last if you don't make this a lifestyle. Anyone, if you want to build muscle, if you want to lose 5 kilos, you have to make this part of your life. So Daniel, I would like to say a massive thank you for coming on the podcast today, and I really appreciate it. Is there any final words you'd like to say?
I mean, we kind of covered everything. Just, I've said all I kind of have in my mind to say, so I'm satisfied.
Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you in the next one.